My name is Brooke. I'm 33, the CEO of a major medical supply company in Seattle. 10 years. 10 years of relentless ambition, sleepless nights, and sacrificing everything that could have been mine for the taking. Weekends, I gave them up, family vacations. A distant fading memory. I don't have a husband, no kids, and I sure as hell don't have time for fleeting relationships with my coworkers. To the world, I'm that cold, distant woman who shows up before dawn and leaves only when the building's empty. But at home, I'm just a placeholder. The eldest of 3 sisters, Madison, 27, a preschool teacher in Spokane, married with twin boys, and Natalie, 25, newly married, 6 months pregnant. They live near our parents in Tacoma and share one glaring thing in common: whenever the babysitter slot needs filling, guess who gets the call? Can you watch the kids this Saturday? I must have heard that question 100 times this past year. Sometimes while I'm knee-deep in an important presentation. Other times, right after an excruciating 18-hour flight. But I never say no. The eldest. The one who doesn't need help. The one who's always there, no matter what. Growing up, I was the one who had to handle everything. My mom spent most of her time managing Madison's allergies or helping Natalie sound out words. I was independent by default, figuring it out alone. In college, I earned a full scholarship, worked my way through school, and never asked for a dime. I became the capable eldest, the one who never needed help. Everyone saw me as that, and it became their excuse to expect more. I remember last year on Mom's birthday, 5:00 a.m. I was already in the kitchen, baking a cake, prepping dinner, and picking up my nephews from school. Madison and Natalie laughed and chatted in the living room while I sliced fruit. My mom, in her cozy, oblivious way, said, "Brooke is always so thoughtful. I'm so proud of you." But that pride never came with understanding, never with true acknowledgement. I haven't had a vacation in 4 years. The last one, a trip to Hawaii with a coworker, vanished when Madison called flu. She said, "Can you watch the kids? I canceled the ticket. That vacation gone. I love my nephews, don't get me wrong, but love shouldn't feel like an endless duty, especially when no one sees the toll it takes." I started realizing this on a Tuesday morning during a video call. My phone kept vibrating. Natalie was blowing it up. I answered, bracing for something serious, but she casually said, "Can you watch Minnie? I've got a spa appointment." I paused, then gave a dry laugh. "You're calling me during a meeting for that." Natalie giggled, oblivious. "You're single. What could you be busy with?" That line, casual and careless, stabbed deeper than it should have. To them, no husband, no kids meant I had no life. No one ever asked if I was tired, if I was overwhelmed. I was just there. The ever-present one. The invisible one. I began to wonder, if I just vanished one day from this endless loop of responsibilities, would anyone even notice? Would anyone care? The thought gnawed at me as I was preparing to present the quarterly report at work. My phone buzzed again. Madison. She never called during business hours unless it was something urgent. "Hey, what's up?" I answered, bracing for bad news. Madison's voice was syrupy sweet, like she'd been practicing her pitch. "I need a tiny favor," I sighed. "What is it?" She hesitated, drawing out the moment. "Mom's turning 60 soon, and we're planning something really special. It's a little pricey, though." I felt my pulse spike. How much I asked already, sensing the answer. "Ford. 500. But don't worry, Natalie and I already chipped in. You just need to send $3,000 to cover the rest." I nearly dropped the phone. $3,000, a month's rent. That much for Mom's birthday. "Are we hiring a rock band?" I tried to joke, but she laughed it off. "No, but it's a big deal. You know, Mom always dreamed of everyone being together." I stared at the computer screen in front of me. The hospital budget glowing red. A constant reminder of how much I'd given and how much more they expected from me. I had planned a trip to Colorado for March, but clearly that would be put on hold like everything else in my life. "All right," I said, my voice flat, detached. "Send me the details." A few seconds later, the message came through. Then Madison added casually, almost too easily, "Oh, and make sure you take the whole week off from the 12th to the 18th. Don't book any business trips. There's a full schedule of stuff." I nodded mechanically as if the rhythm of this routine no longer fazed me. Okay. I didn't ask questions. I didn't challenge. They were used to that. The next week, I tried to bring it up during calls, but Madison and Natalie were masters of evasion. "We're still finalizing the details." "Almost done. Just save your energy to play with the kids," Madison said, bouncing a fussy baby in her arms during a FaceTime call. Unease simmered beneath my skin. No one had told me the plan. No email, no group chat, no clear explanation of what I was actually being asked to do. All I had were fragments, bits and pieces of a plan that didn't quite add up. Then at a weekend dinner at our parents' house, the truth hit like a slap in the face. I had just placed the salad bowl on the table when Natalie, in a voice that rang with fake excitement, clapped her hands and said, "Big news, everyone! It's official! Next week, we're all staying at Moonberry Lodge in Montana. Snow everywhere, hot springs, private cabins." The room erupted. Mom beamed like it was the best news in the world. Dad patted Madison's back. The sisters started chatting about what color ski jackets to bring, and I froze. I hadn't been told about the location, the dates, unclear. I hadn't even booked a flight. "Wait," I said, my voice sounding foreign to me. "Moonberry Lodge." No one had mentioned this to me. No one had included me in any of the planning. Madison hesitated. She glanced at Natalie, and the room's energy dipped just for a second. Then Mom cleared her throat, her eyes distant, almost rehearsed. "Well, Brooke," she said, her voice colder than usual. "The thing is, everything's been arranged. The kids need someone, and we really want Mom to relax without any worries. So, could you do the family a huge favor?" I set my water glass down, suddenly aware of the weight of it in my hand. "You mean everyone's going to Montana?" I said quietly. "And I'm staying behind to watch 5 kids." Natalie gave me a nervous smile, her eyes flickering with something close to guilt. "You know the kids love you. Honestly, you don't really know anyone there. You'd be bored up in the mountains." It hit me all at once. The truth was clear now, sharp and bitter. I had been excluded from the start. I'd contributed the $3,000 that was supposed to go toward this trip. $3,000 that went to make their vacation possible while I was left behind the one who didn't matter. To them, I was just the perfect unpaid nanny. Dependable, unattached, always available. I looked around the table, searching their faces, but no one seemed to notice the shift in me. Maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't care. The silence grew thick. I asked quietly, "Did any of you think that maybe this time I'd say no?" No answer. Madison picked at her salad like it was the most interesting thing in the world. Natalie toyed with her fork, looking uncomfortable, but not enough to care. Mom sighed, her expression a mixture of feigned helplessness and long-practiced indifference. I straightened my back, gripping the napkin in my lap so hard my knuckles went white. "So, everything's already planned, tickets booked, itinerary set, and not one person thought to ask if I wanted to be part of it." Dad looked up from his wine glass, mumbling, "You wouldn't enjoy it anyway. It's cold, crowded, noisy. You like peace and quiet." I laughed, but it was hollow, a bitter, empty sound. "So because I don't have a husband or kids, I'm automatically excluded, just because I'm different from my sisters." I asked, the words stinging with truth. "I don't qualify as part of this vacation." Mom's voice was flat dismissive. "Don't be so sensitive. They trust you with the kids because you're good at it. Everyone has their role." I locked eyes with her, the weight of my gaze pulling me closer to the edge. "My role." I repeated the words, tasting sour. The one who pays and babysits so my sisters can relax. Natalie's irritation surfaced. You act like we're exploiting you. We have our own families and stress too. I felt the walls close in. It's not about time, Natalie, I said, my voice tight as I tried to keep it steady. It's about being left out. It's about not being asked, not being invited, not being treated like I'm part of the plan. Mom shook her head, her sigh long and tired. Brooke, you're always like this, always making yourself out to be the victim. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a sharp scrape against the floor. No, I said, my voice low and firm. I'm not a victim, but I'm not some invisible helper either. You call me in whenever the family needs someone to sacrifice. I turned, walking out of the dining room without another word. No one followed, no apology, not even a look of remorse. As I grabbed my coat by the door, I heard Mom mutter just loud enough for me to hear. She'll cool off in a few days, she always does. But this time, I didn't cool off. Not that night, I couldn't sleep. I paced around my apartment, each step heavy with the weight of all the times I had canceled plans because Natalie needed a sitter all the sleepless nights when Madison called, and I dropped everything all the holidays spent alone in the kitchen while everyone else laughed in the living room. The familiar ache of being invisible washed over me, and I realized for the first time that I wasn't willing to play the part anymore. And now when I finally spoke up, they called me too sensitive. The next morning, I made coffee, opened my laptop, and typed, "Quiet beachfront resort in March." I didn't know exactly where I was going yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't staying here to babysit for a trip I wasn't even invited to. I pulled up my phone and checked my schedule for the week. I was about to block off vacation time just like they asked. But for the first time in years, I thought differently. I would take that time off. Not to babysit, not in this city. I booked a flight, nothing extravagant, just enough to feel like I was finally doing something for myself. A sunny beach, a hotel with an ocean view, and no one expecting me to explain why I wasn't answering my phone. I typed out my time-off request email, my fingers pausing over the keyboard. It felt like I was reclaiming a part of me I had forgotten existed. They'll be shocked. They'll be angry. They'll call me ungrateful. But this time, I didn't care. I had spent my whole life living for others. Now it was time to live for me. Sunday morning arrived, and I sat by my living room window watching the Seattle sunlight filter through sheer curtains. After a sleepless night, my mind felt clear. Cold. I wasn't confused anymore. I knew exactly one thing. I was done. Being the sacrificing eldest sister I called Mom. She picked up on the third ring, Brooke, she said, her voice flat. I've thought about next week's vacation. I began, keeping my tone calm yet firm. I won't be staying behind to babysit silence. I continued, not letting the pause drag me down. I'll be hiring a certified, well-reviewed professional sitter. That way the kids are cared for safely, and everyone else can still enjoy the trip. Her voice sharpened. You're hiring a stranger to watch the kids. You think they'll be comfortable with someone they don't know? I need rest too. Mom, I replied, the words coming out more easily now. And if this trip is really about everyone enjoying themselves, then this is the most reasonable solution. No. She cut me off, her tone biting. It's not reasonable at all. You have time. You have the means. Why avoid helping when you clearly could? I bit my lip to hold back the words I had stored for years. This isn't helping anymore. It's being taken advantage of. Before I could say more, she hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. It was Natalie. I answered quickly, already feeling the storm approaching. What the hell are you doing? She snapped as soon as I picked up. I'm finding a way for everyone to enjoy the trip without someone being the sacrificial lamb. I said, my voice level though. The fury in my chest burned hot. No one's making you sacrifice anything, she yelled. You act like we're nailing you to a cross. Meanwhile, we're juggling kids and houses and I cut her off. My words sharp, the heat in my face now impossible to ignore. Because I don't have a husband or kids. I don't get to be tired. I don't get to take a vacation. I don't deserve to be treated like a real family member. Natalie scoffed, the sound grating against my resolve. You're being dramatic. You always think the world revolves around you. No. Natalie? I said the words slipping from my lips with a newfound clarity. This isn't drama. This is me, finally seeing my own worth. And I won't let anyone treat me like a tool again. There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was cold, biting. If you refuse to help, don't be surprised when the whole family turns their back on you. Mom's crying, hope you're happy. With that, she hung up. I stood frozen for a moment, the weight of her words still ringing in my ears. But for the first time in years, my hand trembled as I set the phone down, not from guilt, not from fear, but from the freedom that had just slipped into my grasp. No more calls came through, but the texts flooded in like a storm. I can't believe you'd ruin Mom's birthday like this, after everything she's done for you. Madison, if Mom's blood pressure spikes because of this, will you be able to sleep at night? Natalie, the eldest, has a duty to support the younger ones. Don't forget your roots, Brooke. Aunt Helen. I read each one, each line a paper cut, but instead of pain, I felt relief. I didn't reply. Instead, I confirmed my hotel reservation by the beach in Santa Monica, full spa package included. I made a reading list, booked a sunrise walking tour. Most importantly, I turned off my phone and switched it to airplane mode. That night, I lit candles, put on soft jazz, and cooked myself a proper meal. No crying babies, no guilt, no expectations. Just me. Finally. No. Can you just help me real quick? That invisible weight that had pressed on my shoulders for years, that silent expectation to always say yes, was gone. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer the person they could boss around and expect unquestioned obedience. 2 days later, I stepped off the plane in San Diego. The salty sea breeze kissed my face like a gentle hug from freedom. I had chosen California over Florida at the last minute simply because I wanted to do something completely unexpected, something even for myself. I rented a small ocean view apartment in La Jolla Quiet, enough to rest lively enough to keep me from feeling alone. I walked in with a small suitcase and a crossbody bag. I didn't need much this time. No diaper bags, no snacks, no coloring books. Just sunscreen, an unread novel, and a new pair of flip-flops. I opened the balcony door, took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, there were no calls. No texts from family, no. Brooke, can you? The next morning, I walked along the beach, each step pressing into the damp sand. The sun rose slowly, casting streaks of amber and gold across the water. I sat on a wooden bench, sipping my coffee, thinking of no one but myself. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. I spent my first day exploring Old Town San Diego. Cobblestone streets led me past rows of little shops selling handmade goods. I bought a silver bracelet engraved with the word Libertà, freedom in Italian. The shopkeeper smiled when I said, "This is the first time I've ever treated myself." That evening, I dined at a seafood restaurant by the bay, sitting alone in the cozy space. I felt peace settling into every part of me. No one needed me to wipe a crying child's face. No one interrupted to talk about home repairs or marriage drama. No one saw me as the default backup plan. On the morning of day 3, I checked my phone. No missed calls from Mom, but the voicemail inbox was full, nearly 100 messages, mostly from Madison, Natalie, and a few relatives. The first few lines lit up the screen. Natalie, where are you? We already dropped the kids off at your place. Madison, how far are you planning to push this, Brooke, Mom? You didn't even tell anyone. I'm so disappointed. I set my phone down like a finished book. I wasn't angry, just amazed that they still didn't understand, or maybe never wanted to, that I was no longer living by their script. I turned on the TV, picked a soft documentary, and sat down with my favorite bowl of cereal. The messages kept coming, but I didn't open another. By day 4, I set my phone to permanent silent. That afternoon, I rented a bike and rode along Pacific Beach. The ocean wind whipped my hair. Sunlight warmed my cheeks, and I smiled. Truly smiled for the first time since that awful dinner. Freedom. Like a gift I had never dared to give myself before. On the evening of day 5, I sat on the balcony watching the sunset when I thought of the kids, Jake's big round eyes, Lily's gap-toothed grin. The way Sophie clung to my shirt whenever she was scared, I missed them. But I didn't miss being expected to sacrifice. I missed the moments I gave willingly, not the ones I was guilted into. I knew that one day they'd grow up and wonder why Aunt Brooke didn't come around much anymore. I hoped by then they'd understand. Love doesn't mean silent endurance. A woman who says no isn't cruel. She's brave. On the morning of day 6, I packed early, ready to return to Seattle. Not because I missed home, but because I was ready to face them, ready to speak, ready to draw the line. On the flight back, I stared out the window as the ocean and sky blurred behind me. I knew that once I stepped off the plane, I would no longer be the same. Brooke, they once knew. And that felt perfectly okay. The morning I returned to Seattle, my phone exploded with notifications as soon as I stepped out of the airport. After nearly a week powered off, it buzzed nonstop like a warning siren for the storm ahead. I unlocked the screen. First message from Madison. Where are you? We went to your place and no one was there. Jake and Mason are getting cranky. Then from Natalie, is this some kind of joke? You knew we had to leave. And from Mom, Brooke, please call me. I don't understand what's going on. I slid into the taxi, watching the flood of messages continue, each ping pulling me back into the family's orbit. You expect us to haul all these suitcases and 5 kids to God knows where, Madison? I can't believe you actually did this. Natalie, I'm very disappointed in you, Aunt Frances, who I only saw at Christmas. You've disrupted the whole trip. Your mother can't sleep now. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Every reason, every explanation I had carefully prepared was suddenly buried beneath a wave of exhaustion. I'd barely lived for myself for 1 week, and already they were trying to pull me back into that old role, the fixer, the substitute, the responsible one. When I got home, my mailbox was stuffed, not with letters, but sticky notes plastered on the door. We came by, but you weren't here, Mom cried. The kids asked why Aunt Brooke wasn't home. You disrupted the whole trip. Your mother can't sleep now. I stepped inside, took off my shoes and hung my coat. Everything was just as I left it, neat, quiet, no screaming children, no complaints. Most importantly, no one treating me like the default solution for the family's problems. I opened my phone again, this time listening to the voicemails. Natalie's voice came through, sharp as a blade. Do you even realize how betrayed Mom feels? The whole family is ashamed in front of our relatives. Everyone was counting on you and you just disappeared, like we meant nothing. Madison's whisper, tight with rage. You ruined the vacation. We'd been planning for months. Jake's been crying for Aunt Brooke. How do you sleep at night? I didn't reply. I didn't apologize either, because what they really missed wasn't me. It was the version of me who followed orders without question. That night, I opened a bottle of wine. The city glittered beyond my balcony as always. But to me, everything had shifted. In the silence of my little apartment, I had crossed a threshold, not a threshold of rebellion, but one of freedom. The next morning, while watering my plants on the patio, a message came in from Mom. If you feel like you're no longer part of this family, then I don't know what else to say. I set the phone down. For the first time in my life, those words didn't sting. Because I knew real family doesn't manipulate through guilt. Real family is built on understanding and the choice to stand beside each other, not unconditional demands. I opened my laptop, signed up for a night photography class. Then I searched for a summer tour through Europe. I didn't ask for anyone's input. I didn't wait for permission. I just did it because I wanted to. Less than 24 hours after I returned home, I was taking control of my life. I was making tea in the kitchen when I heard a rattle at the front door. At first, I thought someone had the wrong address, but then the lock turned with a distinct, deliberate click. I stepped into the hallway just as the door swung open. My mother stood there, still holding the emergency key I'd given her years ago, just in case. Behind her were Madison and Natalie, both of them red-faced from cold anger, or maybe both. "How long were you planning to avoid us?" Mom asked, her voice as cold as the frost outside. No greeting, no explanation. I didn't invite them in, but they walked straight through the doorway, like my home was part of their map of control. Madison dropped her bag onto the chair, planted her hands on her hips, and glared at me. "You left 5 kids without warning. We were standing at your door in the snow. No message. No apology. You think that's okay?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the kitchen counter. No one asked if I agreed. "You made plans, assigned roles, gave me the hardest job, then got angry when I didn't play along. Is that what's normal to you?" Natalie's face flushed. "You used to help. When did you become so heartless?" I looked at my sister. My voice was low, measured. When helping became expected. When I realized that if I didn't say no this time, I might never have the right to say it at all. Mom stood arms crossed, scanning my apartment like she was judging every corner. Then she spoke her words slow, sharp as glass.
"I never thought you'd turn into this kind of person, Brooke. You used to be the pride of this family."
I laughed. Not loud, not bitter. Just the hollow laugh of someone finally setting a burden down. If I was the pride of the family, then why was I always the first one chosen to sacrifice? I thought, why has no one ever asked if I wanted to be part of what was happening? Or is it that to you, I only matter when I'm useful? Madison kicked the chair hard, her voice cutting through the room. "You ruined the trip. Mom couldn't fully enjoy it. The whole family's a mess, and I had to stay home watching the kids alone, all because of you." I met Madison's eyes, unwavering. "And what do you think I've been doing all these years? Who watched your kids when you were sick? Who cooked? Who canceled personal plans because Natalie had a last-minute spa appointment?" I paused, letting the weight of the question hang in the air. "You've gotten so used to receiving that. When it stops, you call it betrayal." Natalie stepped forward, her eyes welling up. "You've changed. You didn't used to be this cold." I shook my head softly. "No, I haven't changed. I've just stopped tolerating it." No one spoke for a few seconds. The silence in the small room was deafening, heavy, like a wake-up bell. Finally, my mother broke it. "If you truly see this family as such a burden, then maybe I was wrong to believe you were the one holding us all together." I nodded, my gaze calm. "No, you weren't wrong to count on me, but you were wrong to treat that as a permanent obligation." Mom turned away, her eyes no longer meeting mine. "If that's your choice, I have nothing more to say." Madison and Natalie said nothing either. They picked up their bags, signaling it was time to go. No hug, no touch of the hand. The door closed behind them with a deep, final thud. Not dramatic, not loud, just heavy. I stood still for a moment. No tears, no guilt, just lightness. I walked back to the table, poured myself a fresh cup of tea, and looked out the window. The snow was beginning to melt. The fading white patches revealed soft green grass underneath. I knew this winter would end differently. Not with collapse, but with release. Not with a breakup, but a rebirth. A week after that confrontation, I picked up my phone and quietly left the family group chat. No message. No explanation. I simply hit leave group and exhaled. No message, no pleading response, no calls asking why. Just silence. The kind that says, if they can't control me anymore, I no longer matter. I began to rebuild my life for the first time, not revolving around anyone else's schedule or emotions. Every morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and wrote in a notebook. What do I want today? The answers changed daily. Some days, it was a walk in the park. Other days, trying a new restaurant. Some days, just reading until sunset. No one had the right to interrupt. I signed up for a Thursday night art class, something I once thought was a luxury because I had to keep my phone nearby just in case something happened with the kids. Now I painted freely without the tired eyes hidden behind cheerful portraits. On weekends, I visited art exhibits, joined a book club, went to concerts alone without making excuses to anyone. And I realized being alone wasn't nearly as scary as I'd once been taught to believe. I also started planning my European trip in June. Paris, Florence, then Amsterdam, 3 dream destinations I'd wanted to visit since college, but never thought I'd deserved. This time, I asked no one's opinion. I didn't wait for approval. I booked the flights, printed the itinerary, and stuck it on my fridge like a promise. This life is mine. My social media changed too. No more blurry photos of someone else's kids' birthday parties. No more captions like "so much fun" when I was barely holding it together. Now it was pictures of me with a glass of wine on a rooftop, sunsets by the sea. The first painting I finished in class. The smile in those photos wasn't forced anymore. I still missed my mother. I missed those afternoons baking apple pies together. The way she gently pulled a blanket over me when I fell asleep on the couch. But this time, I wasn't just missing her. I was finally starting to live for me. But I also couldn't forget her cold eyes, the day she said, "If that's your choice, then I have nothing more to say." Some relationships break, not from lack of love, but from lack of respect. And I had stopped looking for love, where fairness no longer lived. One late March afternoon, I was sitting in a little cafe in Fremont when I saw a mother and daughter pass by the window. The little girl tugged her mom's hand, giggling, and the mother bent down to stroke her hair with eyes full of warmth. The sight tightened my chest, but also melted something gently inside me. I realized I hadn't lost a family. I'd lost a version of family that never truly saw me. And now, I had the chance to create a different kind. One that starts with myself. That night, I pulled up my phone, opened emergency contacts, and removed my mother's number. Not out of hatred, but because I no longer wanted to live as someone's backup plan. I added a new contact instead. Marissa, a friend from my art class. She's a photographer who once backpacked solo across Iceland. "If you need a travel buddy for Florence, I'm in," she'd said. My heart felt warmer. My life no longer revolved around midnight crisis texts or last-minute babysitting requests between meetings. It now included on-time dinners, uninterrupted sleep, and honest conversations, unpressured and uncompromised. I don't know if Mom will ever come knocking again, or if Madison and Natalie will ever understand what I've been through. But I do know this: if they return, I'll greet them calmly, but there will be no more default sacrifices. One April morning, sitting by the window of my apartment, sunlight spilled through the sheer curtains like silk, and it hit me. I had finally stepped through a threshold I'd never dared approach before. I used to believe that choosing myself was selfish, that if I wasn't always willing to sacrifice, if I wasn't always available when my family called, I was a bad person. I spent my youth confusing love with duty, volunteering with obligation. Now everything was clearer than ever. I'm not selfish for living for myself. I'm simply respecting myself, something I always had the right to do. I remembered how I felt during those first days in San Diego. Awkward, hollow, guilty. But over time, every small moment of freedom taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by how much they sacrifice for others. It's by how honestly they live for themselves. The family's silence no longer hurt me. In fact, it gave me room to heal, to rewrite my story without the distortions of others' expectations. I made a list of all the things I gave up for others: canceled trips, forgotten hobbies, dreams I once labeled unrealistic. Now I'm picking them back up piece by piece, building a new picture of a woman who knows she deserves happiness. Without asking for permission, I started scheduling small weekend getaways, tulip fields, Skagit Valley, light hikes at Rattlesnake Ledge, local farmers markets. I set a goal to try one new thing each month, no matter how small, no matter how silly, as long as it made me smile. One day, sitting at my favorite cafe, I overheard a girl at the next table whisper to her friend, "I'm scared that if I say no to my family, they'll think I'm selfish." I smiled to myself. I knew that feeling. And I knew that overcoming it was the hardest, most freeing thing in the world. If I could say one thing to that girl, I'd say, "You're not selfish for choosing yourself. You're living your truth, and you don't need to apologize for that." Deep down, I realized I never wanted to cut ties with my family. I just couldn't keep up a relationship where love came with conditions, where sacrifice was expected without question. If one day they want to understand, I'll welcome them. But if not, I won't look back. Because from now on, I'm not living to prove my worth to anyone. I'm living to savor each moment, to build a life I can be proud of. I'm learning to love myself patiently, gently, without judgment. And I've learned that's the strongest foundation for any future relationship. Not silent sacrifice, but willing connection between free, whole people. Summer's approaching. I've booked a flight to Florence, ready to begin the dream journey through Italy. No one planned this for me. No messages asking, "Brooke, can you?" Interrupting every second of freedom, before leaving Seattle, I left a small note on my kitchen counter, just for me. "Welcome home, Brooke. You finally chose yourself. This time, I know for sure it's the best decision I've ever made." Brooke's story is a powerful reminder that loving yourself isn't selfish. It's essential. In a world that glorifies silent sacrifice, especially from women, setting boundaries and saying no is an act of bravery. Brooke stepped away from her default family role to reclaim her identity and build a life that no longer depends on others' approval. She chose to live honestly, fully, and above all, for herself. What do you think of Brooke's decision? Was she too firm? Or was this the only way to truly protect her peace? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories like this one.